Alright guys, in today's video we have some really good news for anyone who is hoping to get their hands on a PlayStation 5 console at or around launch. We have a new report coming from Bloomberg claiming that Sony is planning to increase the production of the PlayStation 5 to around 10 million units in order to meet demand. Now, as I said, this is great news for anybody hoping to get a console at or around launch because your chances of doing so just increased pretty significantly. However, there is more to this. You have to ask yourself, why would Sony suddenly want to increase the console production to meet demand by nearly double? Now, could this be because of pricing? Could this be because they did finally decide on a price and they realized that they're going with a lower price point than maybe people were expecting, and because of that, demand may surge? That's one reason, and we're going to look into that. They actually list a reason here why Sony is doing this, although I'm not necessarily sure if I buy into it entirely, at least not this reasoning alone. So we're going to go into it here. We're also talking about apparently another image of the DualSense controller that made its way to the internet. Somebody holding a DualSense controller. This time it does not look obviously photoshopped or faked. It does look pretty legitimate. And most importantly, the controller doesn't look absurdly huge in someone's hand. It actually looks like, believe it or not, a normal size controller. Who would have thought? So this is what we're going to be talking about in today's video. If you could do me a big favor, make sure you hit like to help the video out. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any future content, and hit the bell notification icon so you're notified immediately anytime a new video goes live. Let's start here with this Bloomberg report. A report from earlier this year claimed Sony intended to manufacture only a select number of PlayStation 5 units in the console's first year to market. Reportedly, that number sat somewhere between 5 to 6 million units by the end of this fiscal year in March 2021. Due to concerns regarding a second wave of CV, the manufacturer estimates more people will be left at home, leaving them in want of new entertainment. Thus, a demand for gaming may surge quite drastically. Sony then aims to increase its PlayStation 5 output to 10 million units this year. Sources reportedly familiar with Sony's operations told Bloomberg that despite this revised plan, the company may still struggle to bring all 10 million consoles to market. Shipping constraints appear to be the primary reason, since a majority of PlayStation consoles are made in China, then shipped to North America and Europe via ocean lines. Bloomberg notes Nintendo previously had trouble restocking the Switch earlier in the year for this very reason. According to Bloomberg sources, mass production on the next-gen console kicked off in June. Should all go well, Sony anticipates 5 million PS5s will have rolled off the assembly line by the time September ends. At this rate, another 5 million should be assembled between the months of October and December. Bloomberg points out that logistical delays still would not guarantee all 10 million units hit stores by year's end. One suggestion is air travel for shipping purposes, as was the case with the PlayStation 4's launch in 2014. However, CV has hindered airlines in recent months. Sony would unlikely be able to secure the flights necessary. So obviously this is a lot of info here to go over, and it has some pretty huge implications. Now, we have to look at the reasoning listed here as to why Sony would suddenly want to double the production of the PlayStation 5. And one of the reasons listed here, in fact, the only reason listed by Bloomberg, is because Sony is apparently anticipating a second wave later this year, which is obviously unfortunate. None of us want that, but that's just the reality of the situation we're currently in. Seems like it's going to happen. And the reason why this may actually be the reason, as strange as it may sound, is because something we've noticed during the time, that everything the world is going through right now is gaming has seemingly surged, and Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft have all seen a dramatic increase in console sales across the board because more people are staying inside and looking for something to do. There's a lot of people getting back into gaming, a lot of people getting into gaming for the first time. Therefore, their consoles are starting to sell more. Now, if we see something similar happen later this year or even going into early 2021, then it makes sense that maybe Sony and even Microsoft and Nintendo would try to ramp up production to meet a potential huge surge in demand. Now that's one reason, but I'm not so sure that that would mean they want to double the PlayStation 5 production, because I mean, that's pretty dramatic. You're talking about going from 5 to 6 million to potentially 10 million. As it says here, they might not be able to ship all 10 million units as quickly as they want to. It's not necessarily a problem of manufacturing at this point. It's just a logistical shipping issue. So that remains to be seen. Ideally, Sony would like to have all 10 million ready to go, obviously, but I'm not so sure that I buy this reasoning 100%, because to me, it seems like this could potentially let us know that Sony may have actually nailed down a price point at this moment in time. And that's maybe one of the big reasons why they're deciding to increase production so dramatically and meet that demand. Because what would create pretty much double the demand, right? Is it really because more people are going to be home? Potentially, but double? I mean, double, that's pretty significant. To me, this may indicate that Sony has decided that at least one of these PlayStation 5 consoles, more than likely the Digital Edition, will in fact be sold at $400. Now, I'm not saying that's guaranteed. I am just speculating. I'm just guessing here. But I think that, you know, it's a pretty good guess that this could potentially be one of the reasons, because you have to understand the approach that Sony took up until this point, and they've kind of made it clear, is that they're more focused on the value proposition, not necessarily the price point. And we've been hearing this conversation that, oh, because these consoles are going to come in more expensive at around $500, the demand might not be as high. But now suddenly Sony seems to believe that the demand for this console is going to be nearly double. Now, this could just be because this is how hyped people are, and it has nothing to do with price, where maybe they believe 10 million people potentially within the first couple months of the PS5 being out will pay $500 for a PS5. I mean, if you look at the social media numbers, if you look at the numbers that their events have been doing, it's pretty clear that the excitement and the hype for the PS5 is through the roof at this point. So could this potentially mean that the console is coming in at $400, at least the digital version? I think there might be a pretty decent chance. I mean, we've been talking about this here on the channel. To me, this just kind of adds to it. So I'm not saying it's guaranteed. I'm not saying it's confirmed. I'm just saying it seems more likely than ever before that at least one of these PlayStation 5 SKUs will hit that $399 price point. And to kind of back this up a little bit, I want to refer to Daniel Ahmad on Twitter, who is a well-known insider and is very credible. And he actually weighed in on this. Somebody asked him, could this point to Sony launching at a lower price than many are expecting, like $399, or just a sign that people need home entertainment during everything that's going on in the world? And his answer to that is both. It also shows that they are confident that they will outsell competitors during the holiday period too. So that's another thing we have to pay attention to, is one of the reasons why Sony would suddenly want to double production. Again, we have to understand, maybe this is what Sony was always anticipating, like they always wanted to hit 9 to 10 million units being produced within this time frame, but earlier this year that it just seemed unlikely it was going to happen, but now they realize it can happen. We have to understand that. But what Daniel Ahmad is saying here is that this is not only an indicator that Sony could potentially be hitting a lower price point than people are expecting, thus leading to an increase in demand, but that Sony seems to be very confident they are going to outsell their competitors, not just the next generation Xbox, but potentially even the Switch as well. So yeah, all around good news, guys. So I hope that this kind of calms your fears a little bit. If you're somebody like myself who was starting to get a little bit nervous and anxious that maybe you're not going to be able to get your hands on a PlayStation 5 as soon as you want. The last thing I think anybody wants, including Sony, but especially the consumer, is if you're really excited for this console and it's something you were really looking forward to, the last thing you want is to see other people getting their hands on it, and then you have to wait months potentially before you can. And that's just a, that's just a terrible feeling. So hopefully none of us will have to experience that. But moving on here, and to end this video, I want to talk about this image for just a few minutes here. Over on Twitter, Gamesway, or hopefully I'm saying their name correctly, has uploaded an image showing a DualSense being held in hand. As is always the case with such things, there's a lot of skepticism about whether this is real. You'd be surprised at the amount of effort people put into creating convincing fakes, but based on the controller's size and things such as the reflections and shadows, the image does look pretty convincing. Either way, take this with a grain of salt for now. And so, yeah, I'm looking at this image and it looks legitimate, guys. I have to tell you, it definitely seems like the real deal. If it is fake, it's a very, very convincing and a very good fake. But if it is real, it clearly shows that this is a normal sized controller. Now, this guy does look like maybe he has like some bigger hands here, but still, it doesn't look like it's tiny in his hand, and it doesn't look like it's absurdly huge. Frankly, it just maybe looks a little bit thicker than the PlayStation 4, and maybe a little bit more than a little bit, but it doesn't look like absurd. And I'm just pointing this out because we saw that fake image that was making the rounds, and it was so obviously fake. And I made a joke about it on Twitter. I'm like, look, when it comes to the PlayStation 5 and next generation, everything's bigger. The console's bigger, the fan base is bigger, the controller's going to be bigger, the games are going to be bigger, and that's just kind of the theme I'm going with. When it comes to the PlayStation 5, we actually just heard about the weight of the PlayStation 5 as well, just to add that in here at the end. Apparently, the PS5 is going to weigh about 10 pounds or close to that. I think it's actually been confirmed it's going to be about 10 or 10 and a half pounds, which is pretty heavy. I mean, it's not the heaviest console ever. I think it's still a little bit less than the original PlayStation 3, but yeah, the PS5 is a big console, man, and it's going to be a heavy console, so I don't have any problem with that, but some people are just interested to hear about that information. But let me know what you think about this DualSense controller. Do you think this is a legitimate image? And if so, does it kind of line up with your expectations and how the controller is going to look in hand? Or does it seem too big to you, too small? Let me know down in the comments below. Also, let me know your thoughts about this news we just went over, this report that Sony is apparently ramping up production of the PS5 and actually trying to double the amount of units they plan to have ready to sell this holiday. Again, leave the video a like if you did enjoy it or found it informative. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and haven't already. Hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.